Good morning, Senator. Thank you for joining us. And in 2 minutes, I'm going to turn it over to Trent Green from Legacy Health to introduce Legacy Health and yourself. And we're going to hit the ground running, so you've got as much time as possible. We know you have to leave at 7:50 sharp. And thank you for being with us, and thank you for being safe.
Oh, listen, great working with you. Such a cavalcade of stars here. Community activists, legislators, all kinds of great people, healthcare advocates. Well, let's go ahead, Pam, I'm all set.
Well, our elected leader. Okay, Trent, are we ready to roll? We'll start right now, okay?
Sure.
And if I could ask everyone else to turn off their cameras, and I will do the same, and we'll get this show moving.
Thank you, Pam. Good morning. Legacy Health is once again honored to be sponsor of this important Westside Economic Alliance event and proud to be a longtime member. My name is Trent Green. I'm the Chief Operating Officer of Legacy Health. This past year has been full of challenges in Oregon, from COVID-19 to social injustice to wildfires. It has taken an unimaginable toll on our healthcare staff and our communities. When Legacy first received the COVID-19 vaccines in Oregon in mid-December, it brought renewed hope to our teams and hopefully to yours as well. It was a moment in history that we've been planning for and anxiously awaiting for months. I thought I'd take just a couple of minutes this morning to share a little bit about Legacy vaccine efforts. Our goal has been and continues to be to safely administer vaccines as quickly and equitably as possible. Our immunization efforts are guided carefully by distribution recommendations from the Centers for Disease Control and the Oregon Health Authority. In keeping with this guidance, we initially focused on healthcare workers in high-risk settings, like where our emergency departments, our intensive care units, and our COVID-19 segregated units. Last week, we expanded our vaccine operation by opening 2 large super site vaccine clinics. This allows us to expand our reach into the community to include private medical practices, safety net clinics, behavioral health nonprofits across the region, offering over 15,000 vaccine invitations to community health workers. To date, we've delivered over 16,000 vaccinations. It might seem to some that hospitals are not moving fast enough, but I do want to tell you, this effort is not like any vaccine process we have ever implemented in the past. It is not as simple as duplicating our yearly influenza vaccination program. The COVID-19 vaccine requires special storage, handling, and documentation, as well as monitoring individuals for 15 to 30 minutes after the vaccine is administered. It also requires more space to ensure that appropriate physical distancing is taken in account to ensure protection for all. One major thing we've learned in the last month is that scale is important. And our current independent efforts will not allow us to ramp up fast enough to ensure every Oregonian receives a vaccination in a timely manner. So I'm pleased to report that Legacy Health, OHSU, Kaiser, and Providence are working in partnership with state and local officials to stand up a large-scale vaccination site to make vaccine opportunities more readily available for priority groups like teachers, childcare workers, older adults, and high-risk health categories. On the high end, we're aiming for the capability to administer 25,000 vaccines a day, pending available supply. This process is more complex and difficult than anyone anticipated, but we're committed to continue to administer as many vaccines as supply allows and to ensure that every Oregonian can be vaccinated. It's now my pleasure to introduce Oregon Senator Ron Wyden. Senator Wyden was first elected to the Senate in 1996. He is the incoming chairman of the Senate Finance Committee. He also serves on the committees for Intelligence, Budget, Taxation, and Energy and Natural Resources. Senator Wyden prides himself on holding town hall meetings in all of Oregon's 36 counties, and I understand he's close to achieving his 1,000th meeting. In fact, he's got a virtual town hall, I'm told, for Washington County this Sunday at noon. And I will say we are deeply grateful that we have Senator Wyden. As health systems have pivoted over the last year to respond to this pandemic, Senator Wyden has supported and assisted us every step of the way. We look forward to working with the senator as he takes the helm of the Senate Finance Committee that governs much of the nation's healthcare system. And we are very, very thankful for him and his efforts on behalf of us as health systems and on behalf of every Oregonian. Welcome, Senator Wyden.
Trent, thank you, and great to be with all of you. And I'm just going to make a couple of quick remarks, and hopefully we can get some questions. And it's always a treat to be able to visit with the West Side Economic Alliance. I think we'd all rather do it in person than this way, but hopefully we'll be able to do that soon with the accelerated effort to get the vaccines out. And Washington County really has it all. It's got technology, it's got natural resources, it's got small business, it's got tech, it's got trade. So you all are kind of a microcosm of the economic future that I want to build. I know you want to build around more high-skilled, high-wage jobs, thriving small businesses. And you look, for example, at transfer marks. I mean, one of the major developments in healthcare over this last year, this incredibly painful, traumatic, horrendous pandemic, is the acceleration of telemedicine. I like to think that I helped start that with the bipartisan Medicare chronic care bill, moving Medicare from acute care to chronic disease and using telemedicine. But with the pandemic, we finally got the Trump administration to get serious about waiving some of the bureaucratic rules to expand telemedicine. And this is a technology that really can grow and prosper in Washington County. Patients are going to benefit from it, particularly older folks, and it's especially cost effective. So I really want to hear your thoughts, and I'll just kind of give you a sense of my economic priorities. Obviously, and you heard this from the president-elect last night, we're focused on getting those $2,000 checks out, COVID relief, because I think we all understand that both quality of life, the economy, the very safety of our people hinges on getting these vaccines out. We can talk some more about that. And also, I pioneered a new approach with respect to unemployment last year, covering gig workers, self-employed independent contractors, and giving everyone an extra $600 per week each week for 4 months. And even with all of the hassles with the Oregon Employment Division, our legislators know so much about how painful that was. We got out more than $2 billion of federal funds, programs administered at the state level. But under the law that I wrote, Oregon got more than $2 billion to help people make rent and pay for groceries. So that's a little bit about where I think the big picture is on the economy. I want to mention one other point because it really relates to Washington County. What happened in the Capitol Wednesday last? People sometimes describe as hooligans and thugs, took over the Capitol. That was not, friends, what was going on. This was domestic terrorism, because domestic terrorism has a textbook definition, and that is using violence to achieve a political end, which in this case was trying to keep Joe Biden and Kamala Harris from being certified. And I think we understand we absolutely cannot have that happen again in Washington, D.C. Violence is unacceptable, whether it's in Oregon or in Washington, D.C. And what I call the Oregon way, and you sure see it practiced in Washington County, is about coming up with ideas and solutions and not insurrections and sieges. So I'm going to use that as kind of a lodestar because I know Washington County believes so deeply in that approach. And let's throw it open for a few minutes to some questions. If we can do it. Pam, is that doable?
It is doable, and I'm joining you right now. So I'm looking at our Q&A right now. Senator, The first question comes from Gwen Baldwin, and it is the news in the Washington.
I have heard that name before because something rings a bell that she worked in our office and did terrific work years ago, back in the day.
Well, she continues to do terrific work for all of us in Washington County. So thank you for giving her a great start. The news in the Washington Post this morning is that there are no federal vaccine reserves to release is quite devastating. What are the plans to address this?
Well, it is really troubling what we heard because the Trump administration, with lots of ballyhoo, seemed to be saying that it was going to, on their way out the door, get all these people over 65 covered. And we all feel so strongly about seniors, incredibly important. It's my background working with the Gray Panthers. Now the question is, one, how would you do that? And also what Gwen is raising, very troublesome to the state. And I talked to Alex Azar, Donald Trump's secretary, about this last night. It raises questions about whether the administration was moving away from what they told Senator McLain and I they were going to do, which was to have a per capita allotment of vaccines. So we would get a fair share and we wouldn't be hurt relative to California or Texas or Florida. Now, the first fact is, I believe Joe Biden is going to break with this incredibly inefficient program that Donald Trump gave short shrift to from the very beginning. We all understand that he played this down. He refused to wear a mask. It was even worse than that. He made the mask a political issue when it's just a clear health, question. And so what Joe Biden is going to do is, first, he's going to launch a national vaccination program. There'll be $20 billion made available to work with the states and the localities, which is, I think, what Gwen was talking about, but also the tribes. And we're also going to see the president-elect put a special focus on community vaccination centers and mobile vaccination units in remote areas. I'm very attracted to that because I have town hall meetings, or did before the virus, now did my Eastern Oregon one virtually, and we can't let our rural areas become sacrifice zones, and that's what happens if you don't have these kinds, for example, of mobile units. He also proposes $50 billion to expand testing, cover the purchase of rapid tests, expand lab capacity, and help the schools as well with testing protocols. I have long felt that as we get our kids back to school, we all understand how important that is. We also can use the schools as a place working with parents and health officials to try to promote good anti-COVID practices. So that's where we are. I think the combination of the federal government not bringing a real game. I mean, I went to school on a basketball scholarship. You got to bring a game. You've got to have a plan. It's got to involve, all the, the partners. They didn't do any of that. Half the time, Jared Kushner said it was the state's responsibility and the federal government was going to just walk away from it. That's going to change in a few days.
Thank you, Senator. And we are all looking forward to that. This question comes from Mark Garber. Mark is the CEO of Pamplin Media. He asks, and also on our board of directors, he asks, Senator Wyden, in your role as chair of Senate Finance Committee, what do you expect to happen with deductibility of state and local taxes, which were capped during the Trump tax plan? This is an important issue in Oregon due to dependence on property taxes.
Well, we're certainly going to get relief because of both the hurt that we have felt in Oregon, Mark. Number one, I hear about it continually from communities and individual citizens and the like. So we're going to get relief in Oregon, and it's going to be a focus early on. Also, I think it's pretty clear that it was part of a political agenda. Donald Trump felt that this was a way to punish blue states. So I'm not going to be part, as chairman of the Senate Finance Committee, of approaches that are punitive to states like that. And that's number two. It probably will go forward as part of a bigger tax package. In other words, I don't think it's very likely to go by itself. But those are the three principles that I'm really zeroing in on. One, that we need real relief. Second, we shouldn't be using the tax code to do blue state, red state stuff. And three, that's probably going to be part of a bigger package.
Thank you.
Can I also, because I know Mark is very interested in this, mention that one other really critical Washington County issue and Oregon issue is infrastructure. And I am going to make that a part of our early efforts in the Finance Committee, and not just roads and bridges and transportation systems. Those, of course, are hugely important, but we're also talking about the energy grid. We're talking about a lot of smart investments. And I want to say to the West Side Economic Alliance, because this is an issue for the whole state. Years ago, this country made the judgment that we were going to electrify our homes. That was a very sound decision, and it led to a lot of progress and a lot of opportunity for millions of Americans. I want to say on my watch that I helped to do that with broadband, because I was able in this last package to get some help for broadband, about $3.2 billion, so that Oregonians, for example, of modest income, who are having problems with connectivity for their kids' school, could get improve access to the internet. But it's also important for adults who are working remotely. So I want folks on the West Side to know that every single time, you hear the word infrastructure mentioned, and I'm chairman of the Senate Finance Committee, I'm going to be looking for ways to help broadband, and I will stay with it until we achieve that goal with communications that we set out years ago with electricity to get every home electrified. I want that same thing for communications.
Thank you, Senator. And I can tell you that Commissioner Jerry Willey in Washington County will be very happy to hear that. He is representing for the commission a real push toward rural broadband. So thank you for that.
Pam, I'm going to have to be out pretty quick. Why don't we take one more and then I'm going to have to zip.
Okay, great. This question comes from Andrew McGough, and Andrew is the Executive Director of Work Systems, Inc. He asked, do you envision pursuing changes to the unemployment insurance system? If so, what are they?
The first, and I was very pleased that the President referenced it in what he put out yesterday. I want to help the states, because we've seen that so many of the states were really kind of tethered to outdated, systems, get in a position where, as I've said before, we can have a system that at least is in the relevant century. The fact is, unemployment came from the 1930s, really started in Wisconsin. Weren't a lot of gig workers out and about in Wisconsin in the 1930s. And so what we have to do now is come up with a modern system, because we know that people have very different settings for their work, and we need to make them more friendly and not simply causing people the incredible pain and hassle that we saw in Oregon with all these outdated systems. Oregon has, computers, apparently from the dark ages. So they're now moving to play catch-up ball, and that's long overdue. I also want all the workforce people to know, and the President-elect referenced it last night, that I'm going to make a special priority tying the economic benefits of unemployment to economic conditions on the ground. What we have seen is Mitch McConnell, like at Christmas time, Mitch McConnell was just going to say, okay, you know, the benefits, you know, you're not going to have benefits. And so the holidays, you know, people go on the holidays, not be able to, you know, pay rent. I don't think unemployment benefits should be tied to the whims of Mitch McConnell. So my colleagues, my Republican colleagues would say, Ron, you're the leader on this unemployment issue. You got the 600, you covered the new people. Okay, that's fine when people are really hurting. But what happens when the economy gets better? That's the point of this trigger approach that I've outlined. Triggers are tied to the proposition that when the unemployment rate goes up, the benefit reflects that. When the unemployment rate goes down, the benefit reflects that as well. That is the point of the trigger. So it's going to take a while to develop it and give the states the time to implement it. So I want everyone in workforce programs in Washington County to know it's not going to be rolled out in the next 10 minutes. But the president-elect specifically referenced his interest last night in working with those of us in the Congress who've been leading this debate. It'll be a special priority for me.
Thank you so much, and thank you for being with us. I know this is a short period of time, but I think I speak for all of us when we say just seeing your face, knowing that you are you're healthy and well is so important to us. Thank you for all the good work you do, and we appreciate it.
Pam, thank you so much. I wish I could spend more time. I'm so looking forward to being back with the West Side Alliance in person. So even though the program's ending, let's put it in the to be continued department.
Absolutely.
Big
Our
thanks.
best to you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, good morning to everybody. I'm sorry that we couldn't get to all of the questions in the queue, but we did know that we had a limited amount of time with the senator. He did say that he'd have to go at 7:50. He had an important phone call to be on, so I appreciate the opportunity that we had to be with him. If I could ask all of our Oregon State legislators to turn their cameras back on. Good morning to you all. It's great to see you. The format for this morning is going to be, we're going to go through each of you having 4 minutes to talk about your priorities. We had the Westside Economic Alliance Government Relations Committee put together a list of questions and issues that we'd like to hear from you on. We don't expect you to answer each one of those questions in your 4 minutes. We'll have time afterwards for discussion, and I'm looking forward to that discussion. But if there are questions that are pertinent to what your priorities are, please call those out. So I'm going to start this morning with Representative Ken Helm. Ken is my representative. It's welcome, and it's good to see you this morning. I'm going to start my clock, and when you have 15 seconds left, I will interrupt. I know this is the only way we can do it. I apologize, and let you know that you have 15 seconds left. Okay?
Sounds good, Pam.
Okay.
And thanks, and nice to be with everybody again. I'll echo the senator's sentiment, and I certainly enjoyed our evening meetings with wine and something nice to eat, more than early morning with my own coffee, which is not always the greatest. So again, nice to be with you. Ken Helm, District 34. So my district is the north part of Beaverton and the neighborhoods of West Haven, Cedar Mill, and Cedar Hills, and a little tiny bit of Portland. Yes. Why don't I do this? I always like to let you know my committee assignments, and then I've got a couple of comments that relate to the work I've been doing in the interim that relate to some of the questions you've asked. But I see that Pam and Representative Susan McLain have conspired on the questions, since they're all related to Rep. McLain's committees. So my committee assignments this time are, I'll be chairing our water committee. That's a relatively new committee that was created at the end of 2019, in part to be an analog to the governor's work on the 100-year water vision. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in a couple seconds. I'll be the vice chair of the House Energy and Environment Committee, which I previously chaired for a few sessions. And we will be looking at a variety of both public health, environmental health issues coming to that committee, and some clean energy issues, which I'll also touch on. And the third committee for me is Judiciary, which is the first time I've served on the Judiciary Committee. I'm one of the lawyers in the building, and I've tried to avoid being on the Judiciary Committee up until now, but I think we've got some really challenging and interesting issues that'll come in front of that committee too. The work that let me just talk about infrastructure a little bit. One of the questions is about the Southwest Corridor, and I have been a big advocate for that work for years. My part in that was on the front end, as I helped TriMet with the structure of how we will run the land use component of that, and preparing for doing the work on the alignment, and then also how and where the station areas will be built. And so I was happy to be able to participate in that. It laid the foundation for the work we will have ahead. As you know, in part, the advocacy now is to make sure that we get the type of funding we need. I would hope a lot more of that comes from federal sources. It's my view that when we build these projects and there's a healthy federal match component to it, that is one of the best ways to get federal dollars back into the state. And I'm always looking for ways to do that. The senator mentioned infrastructure, and so did some of our participants. And I can't remember who, but I saw that water infrastructure was called out. And that is certainly the case. This summer, I've been working with our water providers around the state. You may or may not know that getting water to particularly residential users is a task of about 3,300. That number's right, 3,300 to 3,500 municipal and water utilities. And that runs from folks that are on a small community water system that may only have 6 folks up to a municipality like Hillsborough. So I've been working with them to make sure that their finances are healthy, and as we move back into the regular economy, we can make up for the losses that they suffered because folks just have not been able to pay their water bills. So that'll be a challenge in front of us. Thanks for having me. Sorry I talked so long.
No, you didn't. You were like 4 seconds over. So thank you, Representative Helman. We look forward to having you stay with us so that we can ask questions as we move forward.
Pam, I'll stay as long as I can. The Portland Legislative Breakfast is today too, and starts at 8:30, and so I might need to jump off to get on that one. But
okay, thank you very much. So with that, I'd like to turn to Representative Ron Noble. Good morning, and thank you for joining us. The same rules apply, 4 minutes.
Well, good morning, Pam, and everyone else. Just to start off with, I am absolutely in favor of increasing our ability in rural broadband. And I have a satellite internet connection that sometimes is good and sometimes is not. So if I start breaking up, wave your hand or something, and I'll try to see what I can do. But my district is District 24, and that includes the northern part of Yamhill County, and then the southern part of Washington County. So essentially McMinnville High School up to Hillsborough High School. I come into a slice of Hillsborough. As the mayor would say, a slice of heaven. I'll start off as well. I appreciated both Senator Wyden and Representative Helm's remarks. And you know, as we enter this 2021 session, there's a lot that's unknown. My committee assignments, I'm very happy with my committee assignments. They're consistent with what I've done the last 2 years. Starting off as co-chair of both the House and the Joint Committees on Conduct. Sometimes we forget, a few years ago, the big issue going into the 2019 session was the culture in the Capitol, both sexual harassment, workplace harassment. So the Committee on Conduct was formed, and I co-chair with Representative Fahey, and that's an ongoing developing process to ensure that the culture within the Capitol is exactly what the Oregonians would expect. We're making some progress there. And then with policy committees, I joined Representative Helm. I'm in Judiciary. I'm the Vice Chair of Judiciary this year. Very much looking forward to working on some issues that we have. I think everybody knows that we have some issues regarding criminal justice and policing, some restorative justice issues, as well as how we implement Measure 110 and what that looks like with regards to funding and ensuring that people are getting going upstream and getting the support they need. One of the subcommittees in Judiciary, I'm also Vice Chair of the Subcommittee on Equitable Policing. Many of you may know that my background is law enforcement, and I'm very happy to be on this committee. One, to ensure that citizens in our state are treated equitably and fairly. I know that's been a goal since, well, for many of us for a long time, but we have not really reached that mark yet. We have not quite obtained that. So I think we have an opening through tragedy, and it's unfortunate, but it's still in front of us, and we want to make whatever changes we can to ensure people are treated fairly and equitably. From there, I also am Vice Chair of our Joint Transportation Committee, co-Vice Chair. I've had to check that out, yes, because there are several of us, and joining Representative McLain. And I won't go too much into detail on transportation because I will defer to her, but it's a chance for us to, for me personally, to be involved very much with some of the big projects and smaller projects throughout the state of Oregon. I know that some of the questions related to the I-5 corridor, and specifically the Rose Quarter, the I-5 bridge, and then in 205 in Abernathy. And those are some major projects. Even in times of some revenue concerns, we need to ensure that infrastructure and our progress in House Bill 2017 stays on track. And I enjoyed doing that. I'm interested in doing that, and will keep doing that and supporting my chair in that effort. Was that 15 seconds to go? All right. My other committees deal with healthcare, human services, and I think everybody knows we're in the middle of a pandemic, which has caused some concerns with regard to affordable and access to healthcare. And then with human services in dealing with child abuse and all of the other issues that have come about from the difficulty in our situation with COVID, both addiction recovery as well, and domestic violence. So with that, I will end my remarks. I very much appreciate being here this morning, and as any politician, I could probably talk for another hour. So thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Representative Noble. My dog was barking in the background, and I thought, I could have used that for the stopwatch, but that's why I stayed on mute. Thank you for your comments. We hope again that you can stay with us and answer further questions. So with that, I'd like to turn it over to Representative Grayber. Would you please unmute, and we'll start your 4 minutes.
Absolutely.
Thank you for being with us.
Thank you, Pam. My name is Dacia Grayber, and I am thrilled to be your new representative for House District 35, which is Southwest Portland and Tigard. I am following in the petite and yet rather unfathomably large footsteps of Rep. Margaret Doherty, and just really appreciate her incredible service over the last decade. So I am excited to be bringing a rather unique equity lens as a first responder to all of this, to all the problems that we're facing, and also as a part of that is being a team player. And I really do see that as my role as we face some of the most urgent issues that COVID has left us with. So that's meeting people's basic needs for shelter and food security and access to care. I am committed to the protection of our frontline responders and our frontline workers, and also equitable and efficient distribution of the vaccine. And that's, as we saw this morning, reached sort of a peak fervor. I am thrilled with my committee assignments, as I think several have mentioned. They are absolutely within my wheelhouse. I will be on the Special Committee for Wildfire Recovery, the Ways and Means Public Safety Subcommittee, Veterans and Emergency Management, and then Vice Chair on Business and Labor. So I am sure I will be talking to lots of your members frequently. I also, like Rep. Helm, have to leave this morning at 8:30. So if there are any questions you have, please reach out to my staff. Please send me an email, rep.dacia.graber@oregonlegislature.gov. I'll put that in the chat and just make sure that I will try to follow up answers to today. I have lots of bills that I'm super excited about, some that are more relevant to what we're doing on the west side here. Rep. Sollman and I have an apprenticeship bill for firefighters, which will increase access and diversity to our profession. A presumptive cancer bill that's being co-sponsored with Senator Gelser, with Senator Taylor involved, and a lot of broad bipartisan support that I'm really excited to bring forward. Rep. Helm and I are working on a few bills around housing, including fairness in contracting and an anti-discrimination HOA bill that will look at how we define what a single family is. And because right now we have current practices that could, are anti-LGBTQ and have racist undertones. So making sure that we are approaching this with a broad equity lens. Rep. Nose and I are working on an HIV PrEP and PEP bill, and then new Rep. Pham and I are working on an orphan highways bill. This is something that comes back. I know it's of incredible interest to the west side. Our biggest concern with that is we want to make sure that our cities aren't left with a large bill, so we are working on a pathway with ODOT to bring those highways up to good repair. That kind of brings me to some of the questions. Pam, how am I doing on time? 1 minute, great. So 1 minute to talk about Southwest Corridor and what it's like in the Capitol right now. So the voters spoke with Southwest Corridor, but I am not deterred, or I'm even more determined, one would say. There's an opportunity for innovative and incredible partnerships to revisit the questions and how we move forward with Southwest Corridor, especially in Tigard, especially in that area of the community. I think one of the #1 questions I get is light rail dead? And I would say unequivocally, no, it's delayed. The train is delayed, and it's also going to take a different form. And that's going to need everyone that's attending today, every one of my partners in the legislature, to look at how we reinvigorate this, how we use it as a jobs creator, how we bring we are the fastest growing corridor in the entire metro region, and I am proud to be representing and bringing it up. And then lastly, do I feel, 5 seconds, I do feel safe in the Capitol. I've spent almost 20 years walking into burning buildings. This is a different type of fire to put out. It requires courage in a lot of different ways, but I think the courage to do this in a bipartisan manner and support each other as we go forward. I'm looking forward to that. Thank you, Pam.
Thank you so much, Representative, and thank you for joining us in your, your first session. We really appreciate it, and we wish you the very, very best and look forward to working together. So thank you. Our next speaker is Representative McLain. So thank you for joining us. We had a little bit of a glitch getting the representative in this morning. Technology presents all sorts of challenges, and you never know where they're going to come from, but we persevered and we got her here. So thank you so much for joining us, Representative McLain.
Thank you, Pam. I appreciate being here today, and the program's been wonderful, and I really appreciate the comments of my colleagues. I am on the Education Budget Committee, and I'm the co-chair on that committee, and also Ways and Means. And so those are a lot of time consuming committees that I enjoy, love, and have a priority on. And when I say priority, that means 42 years of teaching, a grandma, a mom, and I think education is the foundation of everything we do, okay? I'm also the co-chair of the Joint Transportation Committee and also the Bi-State Bridge Committee. And I guess that's what Representative Helm was talking about. I was happy to see those questions because they're important, especially to Washington County. And so I think that I do spend a lot of time on transportation issues, and I am really delighted to hear Representative Grayber talk about the transit. The train's just late, you bet. And we've also had measure on other important projects in the Tri-County area that went down on the ballot. And again, no, it's not over. We're just going to have to regroup. And so those are important comments to be made. I also am serving on a wildfire group that is dealing with ODOT on cleanup of ash and hazardous waste and trees and other things along the highways. And that's important to me because it's safety, and it also has to do with the effectiveness of our future as far as modernization of some of these roads. We've got a lot of landslides in the state right now, and that's something I'm spending time on. I also want to point out that some of the questions, and I'm sure we'll get to it, but I do want to concentrate just for a minute on the Bi-State Bridge and on some of the other important issues that are up there, whether it be Abernathy, whether it be the projects that we're committed to in the 2017 transportation project, or whether it be the I-5 Bridge Committee that's been meeting since 2019 with Washington state legislators. We have been working with WSDOT and ODOT to update all the information that we need to talk about modernization and replacement of that bridge. We've hired a program director in Greg Johnson, who is fabulous, and if you haven't met him, you need to. And he's the guy that's, I think, really going to help us through this process. And what that means is that he has to be there to supervise how we update and how we continue to go forward with this conversation. He's not building anything, he's helping us set the parameters and really look at what a replacement would need to be modernized and get us farther down in the 21st century in our needs of balanced transportation infrastructure. We also have 3 committees that have been set up for that. We have a agency and service committee that would bring in people like your jurisdictions and TriMet and others. We also, and the port and Metro and everyone. We also have a community committee, and we also have a diversity committee. So those committees are up and running, and some of them have started meeting. It's going to be really important for us to look at a lot of our goals as they involve and deal with modernization and safety of our infrastructure. And we know that just like environment, that transportation is a spine and touches everything, and that infrastructure is important to both our freight and our lifestyle, and that it's important for us to deal with them in a comprehensive way. I will bring in some other things like the new mobility office that we have with ODOT that's going to be helping us with some of those issues, and I can bring some of that information in during the questioning period. I also want to point out that it's, I think, extremely important for us to realize that this is not one jurisdiction's gig. This is a state issue, and it is a national issue. And we have 2 of the most clogged, what we would call congestion peaks in our area, and we need to address them. So thank you, Pam, and I'm ready for questions when you are.
Great, thank you so much. I appreciate it. And you're also going to be requested by our Transportation Committee for a session with us as well. So with that, I would like to turn it over to Representative Moore Green. Thank you for joining us. This is your first time with Westside Economic Alliance, and we really appreciate you being here with us.
Well, good morning. Good morning to all of the members and my fellow representatives. It's a delight to be here this morning. My name is Raquel Moore Green, and I represent House District 19, which is South Salem, Turner, and Almsville. So I'm Mid-Valley representative, and it's just a real delight to be with you. Over the years, I've been a very active member of the Salem Area Chamber of Commerce, and I'm certainly attuned to the benefit that you bring to the economic engine of your community, and we start to multiply that, and it's the communities throughout the state. So thank you for all you do, and I appreciate that. I will continue to serve on the Healthcare Committee, Behavioral Health Committee, of which I'm honored to have been appointed as Vice Chair, and Representative Sanchez is chairing that, and Representative Nose is the other vice chair. And so that will be, it's a new committee, and we've got our work cut out for us, but I believe all of us are ready for that. I'm also serving on the Energy and Environment Committee. Now that's a new one for me going into the long session. Additionally, serving on the Conduct Committee along with Representative Noble, and that's a real honor to have been asked to serve there. And last, but certainly not least, I'm serving on a subcommittee out of the Healthcare Committee on COVID-19. So that will be a response to everything with regards to healthcare that COVID-19 has affected, which is obviously just about everything, right? Additionally, I serve on the Governor's Healthy Schools Reopening Council and her Education Recovery Council. And, you know, there were 3 items that Senator Wyden touched on: telehealth, vaccines, and broadband. And those are all items that came before the Joint Committee on the Coronavirus Response, which was set up in March. And that was another committee that I served on. And we knew at the time that telehealth was going to be incredibly important. We knew at some point that there would be a vaccine, although last March that was way out in the future, and here we sit with it today. And we knew broadband was an issue with the remote learning or distance learning, as it's now referred to, that our students were going to at the time have 8 weeks of, and as we've all seen, that has rolled out to a good 10, 12 months almost of education. All of that to say that these are issues that affect my district, being South Salem, Turner, and Almsville, got a little bit of a rural piece going on there. And although Salem is no Portland, we do have a urban sense about us. And I'd like to talk about vaccines, so I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Appreciate your comments, and you'll have time again in our Q&A piece to add more. At this point, what I'd like to do is invite Representative Sheri Schouten to talk with us.
Well, thank you, Pam, and thank you to the Westside Economic Alliance for again hosting this. It's nice to be able to connect with you all. I brought to my legislative experience, which I started 4 years ago, the background of being a public health nurse. And I always enjoyed this group because I get to learn about the business impacts, because my committee assignments are all very health and human services, such as I'm on the health care committee, which was where most of my personal bills lie, but also on the human services committee. And as you can imagine, right now, there's going to be all sorts of human services impacts from the COVID vaccine. Now we have a committee that's specific to that per se, but everybody in the state is impacted by that. As well as I'm on a brand new committee, well, I should say new to this session, is early childhood. I was on this 4 years ago, and now it's come back because, like everything else, childcare has become a real crisis. And there is a big intersection with the business community because businesses can't run well if their employees can't find childcare, or their childcare is always in crisis. I was able to get sizable funding for a YMCA childcare center in my district that will hopefully, you know, get going. Had a little bit of a delay because some of the funding was cut down a bit, but we're got much of that reinstated. So we're looking at making some impacts on business in that way. As far as where my district is, I have a little bit of Portland, and by the way, I'm going to join a few others, having to leave early to join the Portland version of this. But it starts in the city of Portland up by Sylvan and goes south in a diagonal fashion, going south and west from there to the communities of Raleigh Hills, Garden Home, Cross, BH Highway, and then go south down to South Beaverton. Kind of half of it is on, my district is on the east and half is on the west side of Highway 217. And even though I don't have a transportation background, I get lots and lots of conversations going about a Highway 217 because it's such, everybody in my district pretty much has to go there at some point in their life in the regular day. And so I try to keep everybody updated on the latest on that. Some other things that I'm involved in. I'm also a member of the Medical Reserve Corps as a nurse. We're hopefully going to be called up sometime in the near future to do vaccinations. I'm very concerned about that. My whole career in public health was about such issues, and it's very, very frustrating to see all the various communications having to shift all the time, which has left our community kind of in a state of confusion about what's what. So we'll try to make that smoother as time goes on. I have real confidence in the Biden administration that we're going to get back on a firmer foundation, and therefore we'll have more consistent communication about vaccinations in our community. People asked about the issue on the list about safety in the Capitol and what would it be like for our session. Well, we've had 3 remote sessions to sort of practice on with special sessions this summer and the last one being just before Christmas. And so it will be interesting to see. We've had lots of Capitol conversations about safety. I'm feeling pretty good about that, and I hope the rest of my colleagues are too. And thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Representative Schouten. We appreciate everything that you're doing, and your focus on health is part of your background, everything. So thank you, and thank you for addressing the safety issues. I want you to know that that question that came to all of you really is out of concern for you individually and the ability to continue to work and be effective. So that was a heartfelt question. Our next speaker is Representative Janeen Sollman. Thank you for joining us, Representative Sollman. This is not your first rodeo. We are happy to have you with us again. So I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you so much, Pam. I really appreciate this opportunity. Good morning to everyone. Thank you to WEA for this opportunity to join you around a virtual table/room to have a good conversation and hear from each other. I am Janeen Sollman. I am the state representative for House District 30, which encompasses areas of Banks, North Plains, Hillsborough, and Aloha Beaverton. I am entering my 3rd term as a legislator. I'm very excited and honored to be in this position. The committees that I have this session, I will continue. I'm recently appointed as the co-chair of the Joint Committee on Ways and Means for Public Safety. That came to me during the interim, during some budget crunching times, and I was, quite set back to jump in and really learn about our different agencies within public safety, and I continue to do so, and I'm really incredibly excited about the people that I have working with me in that area. I will continue to serve on the Education Committee. The Behavioral Health Committee is something new for me. And I'm on the Alcohol Drug Policy Commission, on the Autism Spectrum Disorder Commission, the STEMX Fellow, and I'm also a Conduct Committee alternate. I'm really excited about how a lot of these committees will actually work together and be able to focus on some of the things that, the work that I'm very passionate about. I am the Assistant Majority Leader for the Democratic Caucus. And I want to say that, these are extremely tough times, and we are going to continue to focus, all of us, on making sure that we have small business relief, that we have housing support, education support, access to mental health and physical health care. It is really exciting to see some of our new members come in with really incredibly diverse backgrounds, and we all come into that building with that different lens of experience. And not being in that building is very difficult to get to know new members, but we are all doing our part in our efforts to do so, trying to make sure that I'm having Zoom meetings with new members. I'm just, you find those similarities, and you find that Suzanne Weber and I, both have that education as far as school board teacher. And I think that it's really exciting to be able to have those conversations and figure out where you can work together and how I can help support new members in the work that they need to do for their districts, because in the end, it's for all of Oregon. And I'm really, again, pretty honored to be in this, incredibly honored to be in this position. A lot of the work that I'm going to focus on is around the public safety budget, whether we're talking about community corrections or police accountability work. And yes, the Measure 110 implementation is going to consume a lot of that time. I have a bill on computer science education, House Bill 2570. This is going to develop a statewide long-term strategic plan to integrate computer science education into curriculum. Oregon is lower on the totem pole there for than most states, and in the inequities they're really incredibly pronounced. The bill lays the foundation as a great start to diversify and expand access and make us globally competitive. So I'm excited to work on that with Representative Diego Hernandez. Representative Firefighter Dacia Grayber mentioned our firefighter apprenticeship bill. I think I don't need to go into great detail about that because we have experienced the wildfires. We know our rural insufficiencies with staffing. We need to diversify our staffing, and this is an exciting bill to work with her as well as BOLI. I also have a right to repair bill. It requires manufacturers to help make parts, tools.
Representative Sollman, 5 seconds.
Okay, and that
5 seconds.
I'm going to set my own timer on that, so we can touch back on the other bills as well, EPR and such. So again, thank you for this opportunity.
I'm sorry to interrupt you like that. I've been trying to be quiet in the background. So, and as I mentioned, now our solid waste removal and recycling people have incited my dog again. So my apologies there. I know that we're going to be losing a couple of you in just a few minutes. So is there anything else that you would like to add before we move to Q&A as a whole? But one of the questions I will point out is from Mark Garber, and Mark is asking what is going to happen, what work's going to happen in relationship to bringing all sides together in Salem. Yes.
I can jump on that one quickly. As the new kid, it's wonderful to be able to come in without a whole lot of preconceived notions. So I know that we're facing these historical issues, and I've seen that because we have over 3,000 bills that dropped because the sessions have not been fully completed in the past. I can tell you that with this new freshman class, Rep. Sollman talked about exciting things. We are forging some really incredible partnerships, even in COVID times, across the aisle. So I have, I've been reaching out to my freshman Republican sisters coming in and having lots of conversations. And like Rep. Sollman mentioned, that common ground where we can identify how we work together, our shared values. And even though we may have different political values, that is what unites us. And the thing that I think defines this group and will define this legislature is we are in this together to help Oregonians to get us through this crisis and to create just the best environment that we can for everyone. So super excited about that.
Thank you so much. Representative Helm.
Oh. Thanks. It's a great question. The way that I work on this personally is in the subject areas that I'm responsible for at the legislature. I genuinely try to work closely with my Republican colleagues in those areas. So in this case, in the interim, Representative Mark Owens, who represents, about half of the state on the other side of the mountains, who is a specialist in water issues. He and I have worked very closely on a couple of water issues. that will be very important preliminary steps to helping the entire state and the next governor tackle future water planning. So through that relationship, I feel a lot of hope and that we can work together. That being said, the scars from the 2 walkouts are still there. And to that extent, there is a little trust building that needs to be done. I'm personally not willing to just forget that it happened. That makes the situation too easy to repeat. That being said, you know, all of us on this call, with the exception of Janeen, I think, are rank and file members, and we follow our leadership. I know that is the case too with respect to when and how the walkouts happened. So I hope that we can all advocate to our own leadership that we try to avoid the conditions that led to the walkouts in the past and move forward.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Representative Schouten.
I think I would say that in my background, having worked a lot with human services, those are the committees that tend to be by far more bipartisan than other ones. I think seeing how we're dealing with the COVID that has such an impact, that I'm being hopeful, hopefully I'm not being too Pollyanna, but I'm being very hopeful that we're going to come together. That's what people really expect us to do, is to work together on these issues and put aside some of these issues. The other thing is, as we all know, when we're writing bills, that we're not going to be submitting bills that have big budget asks for individual bills. And I think when you take all the money out of it, it makes it maybe a wee bit easier to work bipartisanly. So that's what I'm hoping for. So, yeah.
Great, thank you so much. And I'm glad that we got a quick opportunity to have the 3 of you speak again. So thank you for joining us. And if you can stay longer, great. If not, certainly understand. There are 2 issues that I'd like to bring up for comment from the representatives that are on the line that really they've been touched on maybe a bit from the periphery. One is homelessness, and the other is the eviction moratorium. So I'd just like to hear your comments on those issues for our group, and then we will get into live questions as well. Who would like to start? Actually, before we do that, I didn't give the 3 of you the opportunity to respond to Mark Garber's question. My apology there. So let's start with that. How do you see our legislature working together into the future? Representative Noble, may I turn to you on that?
Sure. And my internet connection went out, and now it looks like it's back. So hopefully it's working.
I'm not sure. There you are.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Or we could. Why don't we go to Representative Moore Green and go from there? How's that?
Maybe someone could go first.
Okay. All right, Pam, this is Raquel, and I'll go ahead and I'll proceed. It's a worthy question, and you know, I have a long time friendship with Representative Brian Clem. He and I have both been in the Salem area for nearly 30 years and have worked together in the community on various items. And at a forum not unlike this one earlier this, I guess it was on Monday with the Salem Chamber, he repeatedly shared that we must rediscover our shared purpose, and unity. And I believe he's committed to that. I know I certainly am. I know that the colleagues in my caucus are dedicated to that. We realize that in order to move Oregon forward, we need to stay focused on the things that will bring us together and the issues that we can resolve with a limited budget and resources. So if I could just springboard to the vaccine, I think that's an area where we realize that it's imperative for the vaccines, as the medical community has stated, out of the bottles and into the arms. That's their term, not mine. So, but it's very descriptive of what does need to be done. And Salem Health came together along with Marion County and the state last week and opened up the vaccination center at the Oregon State Fairgrounds. And here again, it's that collaborative work of a nonprofit hospital, our local municipality, and our state government coming together to do good for the community. And these are the sorts of collaborations and work that needs to be done. And I think when it's what the community expects of us, and it's certainly what I plan to deliver here in my representation of not only my constituents, but the Valley. Rep Noble, are you back on?
I think he's going to try it with his camera off, which is probably a smart move.
Can you hear me now? I've actually
Yes.
also tried to dial in. I've had several different options of camera off, and this isn't the first time. Hear me? I'll go ahead and get started.
Yes.
The question is at the forefront, and it's compounded by some of the issues that have happened recently at our Capitol and the U.S. Capitol, and one of the things I think I want to just clarify, even in spite of the walkouts that have been referred to, the tension and the politics, the partisanship inside the Capitol are not as extreme as what we view on the outside of the Capitol. And there have been some moments where we have been obviously at opposite ends of the spectrum, but most of the time, and actually during those times that we're at opposite ends of the spectrum, we collaborate pretty well. There's some unfortunate issues that obviously, and I very much respect Representative Helm's comment on moving forward. Sometimes things happen that does take some trust rebuilding, and I'm very aware of that. And I think colleagues on both sides of the aisle are. But I think there are examples that have been mentioned that actually exemplify how well we do work together, and I'm blessed to participate in some of those. I had an op-ed in the Oregonian this last week that I think shows some of my heart in moving forward, and I've received a bunch of feedback, let's just say, because I didn't actually address the behaviors in the past. I was focusing on where we want to go forward, and I think that's true within the legislature as well, that we need to, for lack of a better way of explaining it, celebrate our differences and look towards working together to provide what's best for the people in the state of Oregon. And I'm very optimistic that does happen and will happen even to a greater extent during this legislative session, even in light of where we are outside of the building and past history of the building. I think it's really important as we move forward that we give each other a little bit of grace, and I'm not asking for myself. I think we tend to sometimes make assumptions as to where people land, and I'm going to use, I've used this example before, and I'll use it just briefly, and then we'll move on. But I am the old white retired cop, and generally that would place me just in stereotypes, place me at a certain place on the spectrum of political ideology. But I can tell you that I think I've established myself as actually pretty moderate and sometimes liberal with regards to social issues, because I spent close to 30 years dealing with people in times of tragedy. So I think we need to not make assumptions simply because of an initial by somebody's name. That doesn't happen as much in the Capitol as people would think. We break those barriers down, and we know who we can work with based on certain topics. And I've surely appreciated my colleagues from the other side of the aisle that have worked with me, and we've joined together for legislation in the past, and look forward to doing that again.
Thank you so much. And I'm sorry we can't see your face, but we feel your words for sure. So thank you, Representative Noble. Representative McLain.
On that same issue, I feel really lucky that in the last 6 years that I've served, that I've had the opportunity to really work in a bipartisan way and really work with folks on many, many issues. I'm a 5th generation Oregonian, and I can talk raw milk, and I care about cleaning water channels. And I think it's important for us to work together. It's part of my own personal value system. And even though we're not perfect and we all need grace, and we all need to work harder on understanding even other subject areas that we may not hold as high in priority for legislation as others. We have to work on that type of bipartisanship too, to see what's important to other members that year and try to help them through those same barriers that we sometimes have with statewide legislation. So my vice chair, Mr. Noble, is very important to all the work that I'm doing in transportation. And I think us just valuing and respecting others is where it starts. And that's what I feel I've received, and that's what I hope I give out. And so I look forward to this session, and I'm hoping it's going to be a really good one for dealing with both the emergency and pandemic and wildfire issues, but also with all of the issues that we care about, including education and infrastructure.
I'm muted. And thank you, Representative McLain, and to you, Representative Sollman.
Thank you so much, Pam. I would just say that as I touched in my opening remarks, that finding those similarities are incredibly important. Finding where our backgrounds meet, finding the work that we can bring forward. In talking with new legislators, I was talking about listening to them and hearing what their priorities were. And when I heard certain things like broadband, then I knew who to help connect them to, someone on the Democratic aisle, that could help them with that work. Because I think that's really important, is making sure that we're doing that work together. I have folks that, we have these important issues to tackle. Being a pub sub co-chair, public safety, I work with Rep Stark, who is the former co-chair of that committee, and Rep Gary Leaf. And I depend on them. I depend on their experience, their perspective, and I believe, and I respect them in their vision and their work in this. And I think that's important to acknowledge. I'm also, being in that position, and the governor making an announcement that she was closing 3 correctional institutions, even though that won't come to my committee, I know that I reached out to a few of my Republican reps, and I said, I'm interested in putting together a work group to talk about jobs, to talk about planning for those folks. Because again, this is about all of Oregon and making sure that we're addressing those concerns. So I will be the sole Democrat on that. I think there's going to be senators and Republicans, but that's important conversation to have, and I hope to help that. I also, we do have a lot of work to do. We have a lot of trust building to do. Putting in that time is incredibly important. These are scary times. I will say threats. I will say making sure that we're on alert. It is unnerving. And I think that we need to realize that, in talking with all of us, is that we don't all have to row in the same exact direction, but we all have to have an oar in our hand and ready to do the work for each other and for Oregon. So I think that's the mindset that I go in with, and I'll continue to do that work. And thank you.
Thank you. I greatly appreciate it. And thank you all for addressing the issue of how to work effectively together, and how to avoid some of the issues that we all know that you've faced in the past. So I appreciate your comments here. So I did raise those two issues of the eviction moratorium, both in commercial and in residential, and also the issue of homelessness. So I see that Representative McLain has herself unmuted. I'd like to turn to you first. I believe you've been doing some work in these areas as well.
Well, thank you. I didn't mean to turn that off as a signal that here I want to speak. I automatically did that when people say we're going to do questions. First of all, the homelessness, Western Washington County, as well as all of Washington County, as well as the whole state, have been dealing with homelessness on so many different levels and with so many different needs. And I think all 3 or 4, however many people are left on, that we all have a heart for the homeless issue and for trying to get people into stable housing. And I know that all of us that are online here have been involved and voted for as many supports as we can possibly do in the appropriate areas to help. We're very fortunate in Washington County that we have both jurisdictions as well as nonprofits that are trying to help really work hard. And I'm working with Brian Schimmel out in Forest Grove and with Open Door and others who are nonprofits and are also raising money for faith communities and everyone else that are trying to work on these issues. And Washington County has really been working hard on not having the use for sheltering in congregate type settings, but to work on the motel option. And we have, through the emergency board that I sit on, have worked on trying to bring some dollars to that particular issue. I also want to talk about the commercial eviction real quickly so others can have a chance to speak. And I really, I really appreciate the Hillsborough Chamber and other businesses in Forest Grove and Hillsborough and Beaverton and other places across the state that have reached out to myself and my peers here. And we really have worked together, and I've been working with a group in the Speaker's office, and we were able to put $100 million into commercial, support for some of these evictions and mortgage issues that our businesses are having. It's not enough. It's it's a dime in the bucket, but it's a first dime, and we're going to build on it. And we have a lot to work with that are some good ideas from residential eviction programs that we also have put some dollars into. We again need to do more, but I want to highlight that Representative Fahey has worked extremely hard in the work groups that she's done since the summer. And we do have some parallel issues between commercial and residential as well as differences. And so we will continue to work on that into the session. I am not on the economic committee this year. We have so many new folks that want to be active, and that's exciting, but it also will cause us to do a little bit more work of keeping up with committees that we're not on. But I plan to be very much involved in trying to continue that work as we go into this session.
Thank you so much, Representative McLain. And I appreciate, I know firsthand the work that you've been doing with the Hillsborough Chamber, and I appreciate the fact that you brought that up, you referenced it, and I know that Washington County greatly appreciates the effort. So thank you for that. Representative Moore Green.
Thank you, Pam. I'd like to touch on the homelessness issue and just echo Representative McLain's sentiments that this is something that we all care very deeply about. In my mind, my fellow humans are the most valuable asset that we have. And to that point, I feel and I know that every community will look at their solutions to homelessness a little bit differently. And that's one of the hallmarks of Oregonians is we're all very independent, and our communities reflect that. And how a community wants to address the issue really does need to be left to them. I feel that at the state level, we certainly need to allocate the dollars, and I would like them to be a little bit less restrictive, to allow the communities the flexibility to use those funds. So for instance, the city of Salem is underway now with unwinding the policy that they put in place shortly after we were shut down in March due to the virus. And what the city of Salem allowed the homeless to do was to camp in parks. And that was the solution that they felt would keep that community healthy and reduce the spread of the disease. Well, they're realizing that this now needs to be unwound, and how are they going to go about doing that? And so they very methodically have set out a plan to transition between 300 and 400 homeless individuals into housing. And that will take money and time and obviously resources beyond just money. And here again, it's a plan that the city council has bought into, the community has spoken into, and in my estimation, will reflect the values of our community and how we want to help the homeless with the wraparound services, so on and so forth. So that's my piece on the homeless issue and how I think that it should be approached. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Representative Sollman, and then we'll go to final 1-minute wrap up.
Okay, thank you. I'll actually keep incredibly brief because Representative McLain and I, we share a lot of our Hillsborough area and such. And so we have been very fortunate to work with our local chamber and be part of these Tuesday morning conversations that have highlighted that need for commercial rent support. And so I'm very thankful for having those folks, that their lens, whether talking with Brad or with Les or with Deanna, and making sure that we're hearing the stories, because I can't tell you how incredibly important that is as a legislator, is to be able to go back, to be able to tell people this is why this is needed. And so I appreciate that time that I've had with them on a lens of experience that I don't necessarily have. So as far as our houseless community and our houseless members of our community, I think what this has exacerbated, the pandemic has exacerbated this situation. And I just want to focus on the students. That Beaverton had one of the #1 spot for houseless students. And I think that we need to continue that as we're coming out of this pandemic and we're getting those vaccinations and we're getting kids back to school, where it's not just about education, it's about that whole health of that student, that we're able to give them those supports, which in turn also support those families, which in turn also support those families that are working for many of your businesses. That we need to make sure that we are focused on that and getting our students the support that they need as we come out of this. So I just really wanted to call that out and say that I'm a ready and willing partner in that work. So thank you.
Thank you. So wrap up here. I'm going to turn it first to Representative McLain. And if you could just give us a quick wrap up. But before you do, I want you to know that we are going to be asking you to attend the Westside Economic Alliance Transportation meeting to talk further about your transportation goals. And we may also include Representative Noble as well, so that we can get a full picture here. So with that, I turn it to you.
Well, thank you very much. I hope we can work on timing for that meeting, because many times you have that meeting during the time when we have the Joint Transportation Committee meeting. And this year they're going to be on Tuesday and Thursday at 8 a.m. So we're
on Wednesday.
Okay, we're lucky. Yay. Okay, so first of all, I just want to thank you for letting us be here this morning. I hope that the folks that asked questions and didn't ask questions will continue to talk to our offices and to each of us, and we can talk one-on-one or with other groups, and thank you so much. I didn't talk about any of my bills, and my bills cover health issues like newborn testing, and I also am working on some things for schools. And if you're interested in the bill list from my particular office, I'm happy to provide that. So I want to thank you. I think you've seen from all of the legislators today that we want to work together. We want 2021 session to be productive, and we want to be able to reflect our communities and our community needs as we work through these difficult challenges, whether it be pandemics, whether it be opening our schools, whether it's dealing with next summer's preparation or for preparation for next summer's wildfires. We need to work on it as diligently as we can with very limited budgets. But with the work on ways and means that we're doing, and we've been working solid since March 12th, we've had to, basically refigure the budget twice in this last year and balance the budget once. And now we're headed into, again, that very same scenario of balance the budget and then do the next biennium cycle of budgeting. So we're going to be working hard. Thank you. Goodbye. I know I'm over.
Thank you. And Representative Noble, I'm sorry I skipped over you for the last question. If you would like to address that and add your final comments, I'd appreciate it. I miss seeing your face here.
No problem at all. My internet went down again. So I've opted for a hotspot on my phone, and I think we can make it through the rest of the meeting. But I think the question had to do with home issues and then homeless issues. And I know that the colleagues here on this call, we all share the same concerns and actually even look forward to share the same solutions, which is generally where we come at different angles. But no, we have a situation now that, most of what has been, COVID has caused a working families, small business, and homeless and small landlord issue. And that's who's been bearing the brunt of the economic concern. So I know that we share all that and working to get people in homes, getting people to stay in homes, and then helping our small business and landlords survive. A lot of bills, but I'll just move into my just quick closing. Again, I want to thank the Westside Economic Alliance for hosting this. Look forward to potentially the transportation forum here coming up. I would be happy to participate if we're able. As we go into this next session, we really don't know what the schedule looks like. At one point, we were going to meet on Tuesday. I think it's wise that we've moved that to Thursday next week, and we're just going to take it kind of a week by week, from what I understand. But I think the overall message is we aren't completely broken in Oregon. There is a path forward, and the people that you've had, the legislators you've had on this panel today, I think are some of the most collaborative and working together. And that doesn't mean we all agree, because if we all agreed, we'd only need one of us. But we need to have differing opinions, and we need to be able to work together and make each other better. And that way we can do the best for Oregon. So
thank you so much. Thank you. Much appreciated. We look forward to working with you into the future. Representative Moore Green.
Thanks again, Pam, and thank you to the Westside Economic Alliance for inviting me. I feel somewhat as an outsider that I'm from the south part of the valley, but I so appreciate being able to be here this morning to hear from you what your concerns are. I want you to know that I am committed to listening and to responding and to leading. We are in a mode of recovery from a pandemic, wildfires, civil unrest, and I concur with my colleagues this morning that we understand the severity of the issues and the importance of the issues, and we've rolled up our sleeves and we're ready to work. My office is always open. Please don't hesitate to reach out if you'd like to share anything or come for a visit to Salem. I'd love to host you, so thank you.
Thank you so much, and thank you for being here. It's really highly valuable to have a perspective outside of Washington County as well. So thank you for being here. Representative Sollman, quick wrap up here, and then we'll move on.
Look at that, I'm gonna set my timer too, which I meant to do last time. 1 minute.
Only 1 minute though.
Yeah, 1 minute. So I just wanted to say, again, thank you so much for this opportunity. And I want to say thank you to the businesses, to the counties, to the cities that have all stepped up during this time and really helped our Main Street businesses. I will continue to advocate for you. I will continue to advocate for our Main Street businesses, or I suppose in my case too, that's Arenco Station Parkway and Commercial Street businesses, and East Main Street in my district. So I will continue to do so. This is a partnership. And as I mentioned before, it's a partnership for your members. It's a part to us and likewise. So I think that this opportunity for going virtual is going to open us up to more testimony. You don't have to miss work. You don't have to drive 3 hours. You can actually get on and provide your testimony to a bill that you are passionate about. So I think this is going to be a unique opportunity to open up our state for see, I told you, for this opportunity. So thank you so much. I appreciate it, and onward and upward.
Thank you so much. And I want to wrap up here by thanking all of the participants here. You may have noticed in the chat that Senator Steiner Hayward could not be with us at the last minute. Her support team invited any questions to her office as well, and the same thing goes for Representative Prusak. So thank you to everybody. I want to make sure that I give a special shout out to Legacy Health. We have worked with Legacy Health for a long time on legislative issues. They've been a partner to Westside Economic Alliance in so many different ways. Gina Cole is on the line. Gina is our board member and is just an active partner and really helps us be a better organization. So thank you to our sponsor this morning, and as well, thank you to all of those who attended. We appreciate your participation, and we look forward to getting feedback from you on how we can improve. Thank you, and it is 9 o'clock. We make a commitment to ending on time. We appreciate all of you. Have a great weekend and a great Friday. Be safe and wear your masks, wash your hands, and do all the things we need to do to protect each other. Bye-bye.
Thank you.